All right, folks. Pippin's already here. Howdy, Mr. Pippin. Uh, Thank you for hanging out for a Friday Night Live. I have a minor resurgence of a cold, so I'm a little scratchy, but I don't feel too bad, really. Thank you, Pippin, for checking that link. Yeah, guys, that's going to be for our main topic, but I wanted to toss it up there while I had it on my radar. Howdy, Diggers. Good to see you. Um, that link is a very cool um, plant propagation calendar that I think originated from. I have to do a reverse Google image search, but I believe it originated at a conference. I want to say in Asheville, North Carolina, um, and Hippocrates has joined us. All right, nice group tonight. Good to have you guys. Um, super nice calendar. It doesn't on my printer, it doesn't print orthodon. Don't bother. But this is one that is worth probably going down to a Staples or something, almost at a Kinko's. Kinko's hasn't been around in 20 years. Go to a Staples or an Office Depot or something and probably do it in like an 11 by 16. That's my plan. That's my plan, is to get this chart printed, because it just doesn't. It shows up great, on the screen, but when it prints, and I'm looking at my copy over here, text is a little too bold, a little too thick, and hard to read. But what I did you guys the favor of, I did you the favor of, I zoomed in on it and plucked out things that we can be working on in the wintertime for wintertime plant propagation. And Beth has joined us. Thank you for hopping on. Beth is wonderful lady and one of my customers. You guys hear about her project just about every week. So give her a greeting. I appreciate that. She's a fine lady. I'm honored to have her as a customer and as a neighbor, really, and a friend. All right. I hope you guys don't mind frequent pauses to wet my whistle, because I'm just super, just annoyed. Just that's the best. The everything from here up is just annoyed. That's the best descriptor I have at this moment in time. But let's see here. So let me catch you guys up on the farm news. We had a hysterically funny, looking back on it now, maybe not so funny in the moment, sheep saga with catching sheep. So I'll tell that story here in a little bit. Had a little bit of snow on Wednesday. It was gone by lunchtime, which is exactly how I like my snow showers. Snow a little bit in the morning and out of here by midday. I have got a complete list, or I should say a complete enough list. I have a target list of all the classes I want to teach for this year, with descriptions and cost and how I want to present them. So some of these will be strictly in person, but most of them actually I can do in person, on site here at another location if somebody wants to invite me out, or I can set it up and do a Zoom. Most of them involve showing some kind of slides. A couple of them are going to be a little more like conversational Q&A style, but I've got all that written out and nice, and descriptions, all that good stuff. And this weekend, one of my tasks is to pick dates for everything and get them on the calendar, and that'll go up on the website. You guys will find out about that. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. Some of it might be stuff that I do, like at Toolman Tim's property, where as part of our Delinquents Gully gathering, I might do some classes out there. So and there's no rule that says I can't do these more than once. I just want to make sure I have them at least once, because some of them are somewhat seasonal, on the calendar and locked in. Hugs here is asking propagation calendar for all states. So they've got it divided up by by time of year. So you just kind of need to adjust. Like, this pretty much works for the entire northeastern, or I should say, northwestern. So the lower 48 states, as they say. This will work for that. It will probably work for much of across the Atlantic as well. But you just kind of need to adjust your personal timeline by what your zone is. So just go with whatever is considered spring in your region. There may be some things listed on here that may not work in either climate extreme, but it's going to cover a good bit. It's going to cover certainly, United States proper. Yeah, you're in California. Cool. This will work. Yeah, just, if you're higher elevation, just, knock yourself down a couple of zones. If you're in Southern California and you're warmer, more Mediterranean, yeah, you'll be good to go. Just a beautiful calendar. And I think there is I always want to make sure people get credit for their work. There looks to be a little copyright down at the very bottom. I just can't read it right now. So, yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit, though. The cat has to say hi. This is Sassy, although she mostly goes by Loaf because that's her main function when she's not eating. So you're going to overhear some of that because she might be my color commentary. So class schedule is up. We've had a nice couple of weeks lately of just general farm cleanup, especially, and Tyler gets a whole lot of credit for this. So we pulled a burn permit, had various, mostly just brush that had kind of collected around where we had cut stuff and it had just kind of stayed put. So he was out on the skid steer the other day, gathered a bunch of stuff, found a nice low safe spot with water nearby and we've been wet. So, and the wind has been, chill. So got a bunch of stuff like that cleaned up. He's bush hogged a whole lot. Everything's really open. We're well underway in removing a whole bunch of calorie pair and privet. So just in general, things are looking cleaner. And people are noticing it, and I appreciate that. It's just been nice that we both had the time and equipment to kind of get after that. Refill. So I told you guys probably last couple of weeks, told you about picking up the hay rolls. So we went out to South Knoxville and picked up some 3x5 hay rolls, and I have rolled out 2, and I put a third out this morning, but I haven't rolled it out yet. I just kind of stood it up because I was running out of daylight. Tyler came out there and helped me get that out, and I knew this hay was going to go fast, and that is definitely the case. I was hoping I was going to get at least a week per roll, and it's been more like 4 or 5 days because it gets to the point where they have trampled it so much that obviously then they won't eat it. It gets trampled, it gets pooped on, which is great for the overall plan of rebuilding these soils and getting things growing where we've had a lot of bare spots. But that just means that is no longer animal food, and I need to hop on to, getting the next roll out. So we set one out for them. I guess this was last night. We set the third one out. So I currently have 5 rolls remaining. When I get down to 3 rolls remaining, I will reach out to Marcy and probably have her bring more hay out at that point. So my plan was that the 6 rolls that I purchased to go onto this particular field, this kind of southwest pasture, that's where I wanted. That's where it needs it the most. It's the by far the field that struggled the most to produce. Not just grass, but anything, weeds. I don't care. Anything. Even the brambles weren't coming up. The soil is so compacted. So that's that. It's coming along well. It's going to work. I have no doubt about that. But I could certainly see where if people are, if they're purchasing hay in with the intent to both feed animals and roll it out to feed the soil, I could see it being on large landscapes being a real cost concern. So that's kind of where, again, this is always a balancing act with running animals. And this is why a lot of people destock this time of year. They sell off, they harvest, they don't have as many to feed because you have an idea, depending on how many ewes you have an idea of how many you are going to reproduce. And so, for people who are trying to maintain the correct stocking density. But in my case, I have decided for now, at least for this year, to retain everybody except the rams, and we'll get to that story in a minute, except for the ram lambs, because after our 3-year period, I want as many of my own sheep, of the sheep that we will split off, that will be mine as part of the agreement. So I don't really want to be selling off or harvesting any ewe lambs unless there's an important reason to do so, like ones that are not thriving, ones basically in a case where we don't want to propagate certain genetics. Then we'll make a call on a harvest. But I mean, as it stands, I've got everybody looks great. Everybody looks healthy. These ones that are coming up on being yearlings, everybody just looks amazing. So while we were, Tyler was up there helping me spike that roll and get it out to the pasture, he was like, all right, it's time for your first lesson. So I probably mentioned it, but a couple of weeks ago, I told him, I said, look, I got to learn how to operate this tractor. I need to be able to do this myself and not necessarily have to call on him when I need something that requires a tractor, like moving a 1,500-pound roll of hay. And he was like, okay, I'll do it, but it's like, this tractor's dangerous as can be. So, we, it's not just, gears and all this stuff. I know how to operate a clutch and all. That's not a big deal. I grew up on, everything I've ever owned, with the exception of my current vehicle, has been a 5-speed, but more so just the safety factor. It's a Massey Ferguson 135. It was manufactured in the 60s, and there is no such thing as safety feature. The safety feature is paying attention to what you're doing, the slope of the land, all that kind of stuff. It's not really designed to break suddenly. You operate this by gearing down and using the engine to control your speed. Obviously, we're on a hill. We have a lot of slope, but he was like, this is as good a time as any. So he put me in the seat, gave me the walkthrough, and I got my first rollout with no real issues. Just basically just trying to kind of understand, the shifting pattern, which fortunately the little graphic is still right there below the steering column. And I have to admit, guys, it was fun. It was fun. See, when I was growing up, Tyler was always the one who was like way more into the equipment and running machines. Like, he was just always fascinated. He was going to work with Dad and learning how to do all kinds of stuff over there and assembling trailers and things. And, as soon as he could reach the pedals on something, it was dirt bikes, 4-wheelers, tractors. I mean, you name it. That has always been his thing. And he's got a real skill for it. He's also a very good teacher, very good and very patient at explaining things. So, but it was, I'm 41 years old. It's time. It's time. This is the case, this tractor, for its age, actually he was showing me, has very low hours, very, very low hours. And it has been cared for, and it's one of those things where it's just a workhorse, and it hasn't been abused. It's always been, Dad's always taken care of it. And this was originally our great grandfather's tractor. So it is one of our family heirlooms. Absolutely. It goes with the land. So I drove it. Tyler brought it down and then showed me how to reverse, how to run the PTO on the back to raise and lower the hay spike, to reverse, spike the bale, how to kind of know how much you need to have it lifted because of moving across undulating land, all that, kind of planning ahead, your turns, when to gear down, what gears are appropriate for what kind of terrain. So I got out there, got that first roll down, turned around, got back out, we shut it off at one point to flip so we could lock the tractor down and flip the roll onto its side where it wouldn't roll away. And had a bit of trouble getting it to turn over again. So at which point Tyler roll started it because he is not afraid of doing that kind of thing. I'm not ready to pull off the roll start. And not only did he roll start it, but he roll started it in reverse going down the hill backwards. So, but I was happy about that. So I will make sure that I'm, getting some time in just operating the tractor until I'm comfortable enough to do things like run a box blade up and down the gravel drive and, wait until I'm really comfortable and really confident in it before I run something like a bush hog. Because he said the bush hog sways and it will kind of, he said it kind of feels like if you're heavy in the back end of a trailer, it'll start pulling you from side to side, and that can get real squirrely. So let's just stick with, maybe the tractor itself, moving hay, that sort of thing. So I was happy about that. I have, just because I'm not a huge fan of operating equipment, I can't remain ignorant about that sort of thing. So that went well. And we wrapped up doing that, pretty much as the sun was going down. Pippin's got a good point about going to a manual for a daily driver. I hear you. Yeah, my Tercel, my Subaru, and then my 4Runner all were an Angel's Frontier. They were all, everything was a 5-speed, and we weren't back into the realm of automatics until we picked up the Tacoma and then the Jeep, of course. So does anybody make, is that standard on anything anymore? Like anything not, not German or whatever? Is everything made in, in the United States, or at least they tell you? Is everything automatic these days? Because sometimes I miss it. Not in stop and go traffic, but sometimes I do miss that, that ability to engine brake and roll start and do that kind of thing. And Pippin said some of the Wranglers still do. Well, that's good. That's true. They are pretty theft proof. They're going to get in there and they're going to wonder what in the world that third pedal is for. Let's see. What else have I got here? I went out today to my friends Sean and Jess with the Off Grid and Growing YouTube channel, and we've started a full video to come. We didn't really do a whole lot of filming today. Today was just prep work, but we came in and he had a large shipment come in of trees and shrubs for his food forest. So I came out to make a just kind of a general, like a plan, like he's got his shot list and everything like that kind of figured out. Answer some questions for him, helped get the rest of it kind of mowed down and kind of opened up so we can see everything and kind of talk about what the layout's going to look like. And if the weather cooperates, we're going to make that happen on Tuesday. We're going to do the planting on Tuesday, do the filming and everything. So he'll be looking at putting together a video for that you guys can find on their channel. And I'll make sure to share it on this one too. So I think with that, we got to talk about plant propagation. So let me wet my whistle here and refill. Sassy, take the wheel. She let me down as usual. She's asleep. All right. Wintertime plant propagation. I'm going to give you guys, we're going to go over a couple of different methods, maybe 3, and specific plants that we can do. Now, caveat, so far we're having a mild winter. Who knows what's going to happen, but here in Tennessee, we've been, we've had our, teen snaps out into the teens. So everything is good and dormant, which is important. So everything I'm going to talk about here, this is when the plants are dormant. So leaves are off, and all that these plants, not all that they're doing, but their main goal right now is to put their energy back down into their roots. So the easiest plant propagation, in my opinion, and where it makes sense to do so, is to dig and transplant. So we can do this right now with small trees, small saplings. Some are easier than others. A lot of the oaks, if they're more than a couple of years old, they will already have a significant taproot. But if you want to do that, and it's worth doing, one of the best tools to achieve popping out a taproot is a tapered shovel, and they're heavy duty. The name brand is usually Wolverine. I'm sure there's others you can get. One piece, steel, very heavy, narrow, probably only maybe 6-inch, maybe 5-inch wide, actual spade. And they are designed for you to be able to like just throw them at the ground and pop a root out versus a broader shovel. So transplanting is, for trees, a lot of shrubs, we can do it. We can do it right now. A lot of what I'm talking about, if your soil is frozen or if you stay under snow the whole time, this does not really, you can do some of the cutting propagation. Transplanting, probably not the best idea. You need to have either done that in the fall or wait until your fall comes in. So not spring once they're leafing out, but spring in the sense that what you guys probably call mud season, where things are thawing out, but the trees have not budded. If that works for you. If you were in an area where the soil stays really soft and doesn't drain well because of how long it's frozen and how long it takes for water to permeate because of the ice layer, I would be a lot more careful about digging because you don't want to compact the soil either. So that's kind of, in my opinion, transplanting is probably more of a fall activity in that case before you get into that really soggy season. But for now, we're going to talk about hardwood cuttings. So, first distinction is that the hardwood / older growth. So we're not looking at the growth on the very tips, although, again, it depends. So certain trees like mulberries, all the way to the tip is quote old wood. If it is hard and kind of ridged or ribbed, and it is essentially the same color as the rest of the branch, you can treat it like hardwood or like a mature cutting, not soft growth or new growth. So in spring, when you get your new growth, or early summer, you can see like the tip last few inches will be green and the rest will be, brown or whatever color that the trunk is of this kind of goes for like small trees, shrubs, really more for now. Let's just call it shrubs. Like, I know I'm using mulberry as an example, but technically mulberry is a shrub. So let's say hardy shrub perennials, cuttings. That's the category that we are working in right now. So you can take your cutting. A couple of different ways you can do this. You can do smaller cuttings, and we just call those cuttings, or you can do longer ones of larger diameter, and we call those whips. And you can do this with all kinds of shrubs. You can do this with elderberry, mulberry, goji, pomegranate, blueberry, all kinds of stuff of that nature. Whether you've cut a long one or a short one, same principle applies. Find a node. So a node is just a place where the leaves will eventually emerge. That same node can just as easily produce roots instead of leaves if it's in the soil. So cut it at a 45-degree angle. Let's just say we're working with one that's 10 inches long. We'll kind of go between a cutting and a whip. So let's say we're going with about, let's just say a foot long. Longer is kind of nice because it has more ability to hold moisture. In other words, to hold energy and to access nutrient and to access the little bit of sunlight that it does interact with. So you take your cutting, 45-degree angle just below a node. You can use a rooting hormone. That's fine if you do. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Just depends on what I'm up to. And where you have taken that cutting, if we pretend my pen is a cutting for a second. So we've got this 45-degree angle. You want to take your knife or your pruners and you want to scrape that outer bark also above that pruning. Scraping off that portion gives the plant more ability to take up moisture, because drying out is kind of this is your biggest enemy when trying to do this is really inconsistent moisture levels, which is why doing this over the winter time is a good option because our moisture tends to be a little more even. I think I forgot to mention figs, but you can also do this with figs. You can also do this with the hardwood cuttings of grapes like muscadines. So take your cutting, scrape that edge off. You don't want to like gouge down in it. Just take that kind of that outer layer of bark off. You can dip in some rooting hormone, and then you're going to take a separate stick. You've got your prepared potting soil mix. You can use a compost mix. You can use sand. People use all kinds of stuff. I use all kinds of stuff depending on what I have. Right now, I'm mostly using some potting soil that's been left over from other projects. So I usually just set up a bunch of 3-gallon pots, pack them full of potting soil. I found that kind of taking the fluffy out is a good thing. So a lot of that soil is real light and loamy. Actually kind of pack it in somewhat. And a lot of times I'll even put some wood chips in the bottom so that it doesn't drain too quickly. Again, we don't want it to get too dry. That seems to be the cause of most of the failures that I've had is things just get dry. I take a separate stick or a dowel rod and I press and I make a hole for the cutting. That way, if I've dipped it in hormone, I don't knock the hormone off by plunging that down into where it needs to be parked in order to root. So take your dowel, make a hole, park your cutting in there. If it's something like elderberry or blueberries or goji, I'll do gooseberries, another one. I will do cuttings. I will do 10 cuttings to a 3-gallon pot, because if they root, that's great. All I got to do is turn that pot over, kind of roll it from side to side, and then I can just kind of separate everything out. So I get way more stuff going on in one pot. If you've got gallon pots, maybe do 4 or 5. And for the most part, I keep my cuttings where I usually keep them kind of at the bottom of my garden area, basically right up against where my potting shed / greenhouse is. It's at the bottom of a hill. It sits in a little recessed area, basically what's left of the basin of a swale. And so it has an opportunity to wick up a lot of water when we do get rain. And if we go a couple of weeks without rain, it's also right next to where I have a water catch, and I can just dip in my watering jug and just run down and just hit everything, in 5 minutes time. Right there in the middle of everything, close to where I have the rabbits, so it's pretty easy to keep an eye on them. Rooting timeline. It just depends, guys. I have had stuff. Elderberry is some of the quickest. Mulberry has been pretty quick. Sometimes it's months. So in my bigger rooting beds, where I've basically got the same thing going on, where I just park cuttings in just all the time. Not all the time, but when the time is right, just park them in. Right now I've got gooseberry in there. I've got some whips from Nanking cherry, a few other odds and ends. And if several weeks have gone by, I'll kind of take a cutting and I'll just kind of wiggle it a little bit And if it feels firm in there, I'm assuming that it's setting roots. If it's loose, I either leave it, or if it seems really loose and dry, I'll kind of snap the top. And if it's dry and it snaps like a twig, it's out of the running, and we try something else. So this is one of those things, when you're out there, you're pruning your stuff. If they are hardy, perennial, fruit producing, or whatever, medicine food producing shrubs, park your cuttings in there. Make you some cuttings real quick while you're pruning. A lot of these you can do in water as well. This does not really work for apples. They don't want to propagate themselves that way. We have to graft apples. It does not necessarily work. I've not really had much luck with stone fruits either, although I do keep trying. But things like my cherry trees, my peaches, I've tried. They just don't want to root. If you have a lot of indoor space, warm, it doesn't have to be hot. It doesn't have to be like, the way we want our house to be. But, if you have like a garage that does not dip down into freezing temperatures, you can do this in buckets, jugs. You need to be able to refresh the water though. If you're trying to root cuttings in water, you need to be able to change the water out because it gets stagnant. It basically loses oxygen. You need to be able to refresh that somehow. So whatever makes sense, whatever's feasible in your situation. So another method that around here, I actually just uploaded a quick video about tip layering that happened because I didn't get a trellis built in time. So a nice happy accident. So pretty much all of your brambles. So in my case, it's going to be wineberries, black raspberries, blackberries, all those kind of guys. Excuse me. This will work also with goji. This will also work sometimes even with grapes. So things that want to vine and bramble and make runners and all that kind of good stuff. When they come into contact with the ground, when that tip has gone up, and because I did not get anything built to support it, it went up so far and then it came back down to the ground, will root. No problem at all. So I took a look earlier and I've probably got at least 20 wineberries that I need to dig out, pot up, prune from the, prune off of the parent plant that are going to be ready for new homes. And yeah, Beth, and I am more than happy to bring you some. They just need to have the correct climbing infrastructure. But I'm sure that's something we can talk about and get rolling out there. They are so stinking good. They are wineberries they're very, very soft. They're a deeper, darker red than store-bought raspberries. I think they're twice as sweet. And you'll never find these in stores because they're so fragile. You cannot, there's no way to transport them. Mine don't even really make it inside the house. They pretty much get eaten right then and there. So that's tip layering. That's one of the easiest. That can just result from not getting to something in time. I also, so if you want to have a little more control over your tip layering, I have done this on another location on the farm. So where I originally pulled these wineberries was kind of this sort of brushy area up kind of between Tyler and I. And, the original plants are still there. And the plants propagate themselves in this manner because the original canes will actually die back. So it's kind of the way, strawberries will, the original strawberry plant after 3 years will die. So it makes its little runners, and that's its way of continuing its life cycle. Same with these wineberries. So in this case, they weren't really rooting because they were starting to tip layer themselves, but we wanted it to be a little bit more controlled. So I filled several 1-gallon pots with a nice potting soil mix, and then took the tips. Dog's barking. Okay. I took the tips of the plants, put them a few inches down into the soil within that pot. Packed it in real good, seemed to be pretty secure, so I didn't worry about like pinning them down. But some people will use like a little like a landscape fabric staple or something like that to hold it in place. And so by spring, those will have rooted. We'll prune them off from the parent plant, and we will have more wineberry starts to go wherever they need to go. So that's tip layering. Probably, in my opinion, probably the easiest because the plant pretty much does it for you when the conditions are right. And then we can also divide quite a bit of stuff. We can divide a lot of roots this year. So if you have groves of sassafras, you can go ahead and dig out sassafras root. And, if they have even just a little bit of a start on them, that will be another tree. So you have that option. But more so things like comfrey, rhubarb, horseradish. I wouldn't really do this with asparagus once it's this cold. I think asparagus wants to be transplanted when it's warmer. But anything that propagates off of its roots. In warmer climates, you guys can do this with your turmeric and your ginger. I have mine. I bring mine inside in pots because they won't survive out here over the winter. But you can dig into those and you can split those up. Size of the root to be transplanted just kind of depends. Comfrey and horseradish, for sure. Like it can be like the size of your finger. You can also do this with hops right now. If your hops are very dense, you can wait. You can do it in the spring, but you can also do it right now. If your hops need to be thinned, you can thin out those rhizomes and transplant those rhizomes. As long as all this kind of goes, like the digging and transplanting and the root dividing, the biggest thing for this is that your soil, one, is not frozen, and two, it is not soggy. Soggy, if you divide a root, there's a good chance that new root cutting you cut is just going to rot. So it needs to be well drained. So if you can dig this stuff out without messing up your soil, but you're going to be pretty wet later into the winter, try pots instead. That way you're still propagating, you're still getting the benefit of working with the plants in that manner, but you're not, you're not working on, transplanting back into, conditions that are too wet. Sometimes here because we're on a hill in the nature of our soil structure, we are still considered to be well drained, but there are times that I would not dig too much. Like in our case, more like end of February, early March, sometimes can be pretty wet. So I would probably be prepared to do stuff in pots at that time. The bulk of other, like grafting and that sort of thing, that's going to be a springtime thing. That needs to be, like if we're grafting pears or apples or something of the sort, that tree needs to be waking back up again so it knows and has the energy to heal together the cut. So when you make a cut on a branch and you bring, the fruiting stalk, the scion wood that you want to graft onto that root stalk, they need to be able to actively heal together. And that's going to be a warmer weather kind of thing. But yeah, so this calendar is awesome. Beautifully put together. Let me see if I can find this again on my actual screen. Let's blow it up where my eyeballs can see it. Oh, there we go. So this calendar goes into softwood cutting versus hardwood, kind of breaks that apart for you. Division is another way of, in some cases that is, you're dividing roots. Other times you're dividing rhizomes, which is slightly different. Root suckers. Yeah, this is And I think they've got some notes there, which I can't really read because of my screen, but got some notes at the bottom. I think it's basically saying, these are general guidelines. So I wanted to throw that out there for you guys today because, a lot of times we feel like, those of us who are outdoors people and garden people and permaculturists, we kind of feel like, oh man, we need to be doing something. We need to be doing something in the wintertime. And I know, like, I need to be, for the sake of my own mental health. So, what's a productive and useful activity? And really, this is one of the big ones. That's right up there with, building your soil, laying out new gardens, sheep mulching, managing your woods for, health and that sort of thing. Mushrooms, you can be inoculating mushrooms in most cases, as long as we're not really, really cold. Inoculating logs to do your mushroom production and all kinds of things of that nature. Digging out invasives. These are kind of like my big 4 or 5 this is what I tend to focus on once we get into the dormant season. So, yeah, guys, that's what I had for you tonight. Oh man, my throat. Hope it's useful to you. I'm gonna chill for just a minute here, in case you guys have any questions that you wanna bring up before I just Irish goodbye like I normally do at the end of my live stream. Let me know if you are looking for any plants in particular. I am. One of the reasons why I'm talking so much about propagation lately is because it's I'm putting more time into it because I am building up my own personal inventory of stuff that I really want to be able to trade even more. Bring value to other people, be able to supply more of my customers and clients with stuff that is, it's adapted to our climate. It's doing well. I want to, plus it's just my, kind of my favorite thing is to, all things plants, propagating, learning about them, how they fit together in a landscape, all that I absolutely love. So I don't think I see any more questions for now, guys. So thank you so much for hanging out with us for a little while. I've got another pretty busy week coming up with, I've got a new design client on the radar. I'm going out to on Monday, a couple of hours south of here. Work with Sean and Jess, work with Beth. I just got word yesterday from a lady I had consulted with on an urban landscape that they are going to make the jump to a large property that they are inheriting. So that's exciting. Looking forward to that. So yeah, a lot of momentum going into the end of the year here. So I am pleased. So thank you guys so much, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.